As again, welcome to this presentation, everybody. As again, this is my first. No, it's my second. It's my second presentation here with AGS. This one here, like I said, partially is prompted by my map is not the territory online presentation that I did at one of the general semantic Alfred Korzybski Memorial Lectures symposium that I did, and so it seemed very fitting, as I believe I've grown a little bit more in my general semantics knowledge and application since then. So I'm hoping that everybody here will find some tips to apply to their everyday, and also I'm hoping that during this presentation that others will be able to share any tips that they have for better aligning their map with the territory. And so yeah, here as far as this overview screen goes, pretty basic. Do a quick introduction about what general semantics is. I've seen a good difference, a good article as far as introducing the difference between semantics and general semantics. And then another section of how are some of the ways that general semantics is original, and then go into my personal development journey with general semantics. And then I thought I'd go ahead and go into some of the main general semantics topics. First being process of abstraction, second being maps. The map is not the territory. And then lastly, I was hoping to do something with fact inferences. That sounds fun. First of all, what is general semantics? Got a short little paragraph here. General semantics is a discipline and/or methodology intended to improve the ways people interact with their environment and with one another, especially through training in the critical use of words and other symbols. The term general semantics was introduced by Alfred Korzybski in the book Science and Sanity in 1933. In his handbook of semiotics, Winfried Noth observes that general semantics is based on the assumption that historical languages are only inadequate tools for the cognition of reality, are misleading. Let me try that again. In his handbook of semiotics, Winfried Noth observes that general semantics is based on the assumption that historical languages are only inadequate tools for the cognition of reality. For the cognition of reality are misleading in verbal communication and may have negative effects on our nervous system. And regarding the difference between semantics and general semantics, in general semantics provides a general theory of evaluation. We can consider what we mean when we refer to general semantics by comparing with semantics, as people usually use the term. Semantics involves a study of language meanings. For example, when we're interested in the word unicorn, what dictionaries say it means, and its history of meanings, and what it might refer to, we are involved in semantics. General semantics, on the other hand, involves such language concerns, but also involves much broader issues. Using general semantics, we're concerned with understanding how we evaluate, with the inner life of each individual, with how each of us experiences and makes sense of our experiences, with how we use language and how language uses us. While we're interested in what the word unicorn refers to and how a dictionary might define it, we have more interest in the person using the word, with the kind of evaluating that might lead people to look for unicorns in their backyards. And as far as Bob Pula, who's a well-known general semantics author and teacher, from what I understand, here's some things that I found that he considers to be original with Alfred Korzybski's general semantics. Time binding. This came out of general semantics, preface to the 5th edition. And so, yeah, again, what Pula considers to be original with Korzybski. Time binding. Rejecting both theological and zoological definitions, Korzybski adopted a natural science operational approach and defined humans by what they can be observed doing, which differentiates them from other classes of life. He defined them as the time-binding class of life, able to pass on knowledge from one generation to another over time. Another original attribute, Korzybski recognized that language, symbolizing in general, constitutes the basic tool of time binding. Others before him had noted that language, in the complex human sense, was one of the distinguishing features of humans. What Korzybski recognized was the central defining role of language. No language, no time binding. If so, then structures of languages must be determinative for time binding. And then third original, languages, formulational systems, etc., as maps, and only maps of what they claim to represent. And next, my personal development journey. Okay. For the past few years, I've been seeking to live better by better aligning my map with the territory. Hence the title of today's presentation, Aligning the Map with the Territory to Create Greater Sanity. During the presentation, questions are encouraged. If I'm unable to answer, I'm thinking someone else can. Question for the audience. Has everyone taken the Myers-Briggs personality type test? Robert, I see you have. Brett? Anybody else?
No, from John.
Okay.
Jason, yes, we've spent quite a bit of time on it.
Okay, great. According to the Myers-Briggs website, through a series of questions, well, for those who haven't taken it, it's a famous personality type test that sort of helps you identify what personality types you prefer, or what type of personality type you are over another. Okay, so according to the Myers-Briggs website, through a series of questions, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Assessment helps you identify your natural preferences in 4 areas of personality. As those who have taken the test know, when you take the test, you get a 4-letter score, such as ISFP, INTJ, etc., which show your natural preferences in the 4 areas of personality. I scored ISFP, which means introverted, sensing, feeling, perception.
That's me.
I'm sorry?
It's okay. There's a little bit of background noisy.
Yeah. That's
Okay, I learned that ISFPs are characterized as sensing dominant, which I understand means I have a very strong preference for taking information from my senses rather than taking information from intuition, which I understand is defined as seeing the big picture and looking for relationships and patterns. The expression, that guy couldn't see the forest for the trees, seems applicable here. With the sensing person seeing the trees and the intuitive person seeing the bigger picture, the forest from the trees. In short, having a natural preference for being sensory dominant helps explain a lot about my earlier years well into adulthood. During these formative years, I recall my sensing was so strong that I would describe my mental world as living in a sensory world inside my head and being clueless, and I mean clueless, to the possibility of other mental worlds existing. An example that sums up this living in a sensory world perspective is I recall thinking other persons existed to tend to my wants and needs, unable to see the bigger picture that beyond my sensory world that other persons, including my mother, might exist as their own person, having their own wants and needs. So yeah. Since I started studying general semantics and started applying some of the general semantics principles to my everyday life, I think my personal development has gradually improved. In particular, a few years ago, I was experiencing marital issues, and I applied the general semantics premise, the map is not the territory, to my problem with beneficial results. Later in the presentation, I'd like to share my GS presentation video where I go into detail how I applied the premise to my marital issues. That success has given me the confidence to consider myself a general semantics practitioner. As mentioned, I thought my sensory world was the only world. Is this true? As in my everyday activities, do I experience reality directly through my 5 senses? If not directly, what about indirectly? If so, how? In short, the GS answer is no, we do not experience reality directly. Instead, I understand we experience reality indirectly as a perception of reality, aka object. And in regards to the question how this is done, the answer I understand is by the process of abstraction, which leads into my process of abstraction section. So I'm going to pull up the process of abstraction slide. Hey, look at that. As I thought I'd share some abstraction terms that might be helpful. We have process, perception, and neurolinguistics. Process, I think most people are familiar with. A set of steps performed to achieve the desired result. For example, I assume most people are familiar with the abbreviation IPO, which is the most simplest process I understand. Stands for input, process, output, and perception. And here I found a really good definition. Refers to the person's experience in sensing, interpreting, and comprehending the world in which we live. For example, earlier I referred to us experiencing a perception of reality rather than the actual reality. And thirdly, neurolinguistics, which understands the relation between language and the structure and function of the nervous system, is a relatively new field in psychology. And so as far as this section goes, broken it out into smaller sections. First, discuss the world as a process. And second, observe continuum. Third, go into how our nervous systems work, followed by abstraction process. And then the nature of perception. And then I was hoping to share the Lisa Feldman Barrett video that was posted on the AGS website. And to start us off, I have the Alfred Korzybski quote. Here I have a fan with 4 blades. When I spin it, you will see a disc, but there is no disc. This is what our nervous system does. By this, you see the solidity of an object where there is no object, only rotating electronic processes. We see each other as disk when we are only rotating blades of electricity. Okay, folks, take a moment to scan your external and internal environments. What sounds do you hear? How do you feel inwardly? Anybody? Is there anything going on that stands out or whatnot? Here I see my cat is helping himself to his sense tells us that our nonverbal experiences, what we taste, touch, see, hear, smell, etc., are the way things really are. Here, such as the cat helping himself. Yet, when we look at microscopic and submicroscopic levels that make up our nonverbal experiences, we see a buzz of activity on the atomic and subatomic levels. And as far as I'm assuming some of you may know, here in my bibliography, I credit Susan and Bruce Kodish for this process of abstraction content as that's the primary source from where I'm getting this from, just to give you guys a heads up. And it's a wonderful book. So then to start, so then as far as this next section goes, is our process world. Astronomer, mathematician, Arthur Eddington pointed out many years ago that the firm solid table that we see, touch, and feel in the visible or macroscopic world consists of a buzz of activity on the atomic and subatomic levels. So sounds like he was one of the first to distinguish the visible world between beneath the microscopic world, which goes into the atomic and subatomic, like I understand quantum physics and stuff like that. The scientific object is not the object as you or we experience it, but it seems to consist of events, processes, changing relations at the level of the very small, smaller than we can view even with a microscope. We call this the submicroscopic level, where whirs of what we call electrons, protons, quarks, etc., relate in various ways to make the basis of what we experience as a table, a chair, an apple, you and I. No one has ever directly seen an electron, proton, or quark. These and other submicroscopic entities can only be inferred or assumed to exist. On to my next slide. In reference to the two pictures of the apples, the blurry submicroscopic apples represent the average-changing submicroscopic processes. And I like the metaphor of ping pong balls, constantly moving, always in a state of flux. And as the ping pong balls representing the submicroscopic particles or elements, whatever we're called, which results in a constant state of flux, is my understanding. The macroscopic apples, shown on the left side, represent the things or objects or perception of objects as we experience them. From a GS perspective, we take as given this process view of the world, not only at the submicroscopic level, but in our visible macroscopic world as well. The view of process and change as fundamental, now supported by modern science, was perhaps first stated by the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus who believed that everything flows and taught that you cannot step twice into the same river. His famous quote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he's not the same man." How then do desks and chairs and other objects appear out of this submicroscopic flurry of ceaseless change? If desks and chairs, apples and doorknobs, even each of us, are made up of submicroscopic processes or events, how do we come to experience them as things? To answer this question, we first need to consider each person's role as an observer. And this section is called the Observer Observed Continuum. Both in science and in everyday life, whatever we experience, whatever we know, depends on our status as limited, fallible observers. Observations exist on a continuum with observers. No observations without some observer to make them. As physicist R.D. Carmichael wrote, the universe as known to us is a joint phenomena of the observer and the observed. And every process of discovery in natural science or in other branches of human knowledge will acquire its best excellence when it is in accordance with this fundamental principle. To understand how, as observers, we experience things in this process universe, we need to understand ourselves as biological organisms with nervous systems that allow us to observe and know things. And that leads into the next section, which is our nervous systems. Whatever you experience non-verbally, an apple, an emotion, a pain, etc., is constructed by your nervous system, your brain. You cannot experience the submicroscopic process apple directly. You can only experience it as it has been filtered through your nervous system. You, as an organism, as a whole, in an environment, both internal and external, possess a nervous system that interacts with these environments both inside and outside your skin. You experience in your brain the results of these interactions. You cannot, we repeat, experience submicroscopic events directly. You cannot get outside of your nervous system to experience reality as it really is. So to me, that is about as clear as a message of no, Jason, despite what you believed growing up, no, that that sensory world that I lived in, that was not the reality. NGS, the nervous system process of constructing your experiences of objects from the submicroscopic event level and of representing your experience in words and other symbols, is called abstracting. We consider NGS, we consider developing consciousness of abstracting in our everyday lives, a basic goal of training in general semantics. Which leads into the next section, abstracting. Korzybski wrote that on the neurological level, what the nervous system does is abstracting. The standard meaning of abstracting implies selecting, picking out, separating, deducting, stripping, and when used as an adjective, not concrete. The structure of the nervous system is in ordered levels, and all levels go through the process of abstracting from the other levels. And that's a direct quote. and that's a little difficult it's a little difficult for me to understand, especially with the that structure of the nervous system part. Let's look at the process of abstracting in neurological terms. So, as an example of the process, so this is a slide representing the process of abstraction. So, as an example, let's say we have a happening such as a low battery light that blinks and emits a light ray that strikes the nervous system through the eye, whereby the nervous system reacts by constructing a visually perceived light. And so when I go ahead and break down this example against the process of abstraction slide, there for level 1 space-time event, we have the low battery light blink, and which emits a light ray, and then it strikes the nervous system as shown in our diagram as level 2. And then whereby level 2, which I understand is the nervous system abstraction, and which results in the level 3 output, which is the visually perceived light in this simple example. And so here as we see at level 3, the visually perceived light, that would be an example of a perception. And then other results that can come from our nervous system abstraction then are feeling as well as thinking. Level 4 that's shown there represents our uniquely linguistic behavior, which is abstracted from level 3. And there's one other part of this diagram to point out, and that's called the neurolinguistic feedback loop. As here we showed depicted that the arrows from level 4 back to level 1, level 2, level 3. Yeah, this indicates what Robert Pula called the neurolinguistic feedback loop, which I understand represents the circular process by which the results of our abstracting, our evaluational linguistic behavior influence our subsequent abstracting and other behavior, both verbal and nonverbal. In short, we react to our reactions. So we have a circular feedback loop going. Next section, perception, perceiving. Earlier, I defined the term perception. Here. What was that? Oh well. Earlier in the process of abstraction terms slide that I shared, I defined the term perception as the person's experience in sensing, interpreting, and comprehending the world in which we live. Basic assumptions or premises that you carry can affect how you behave and even how you perceive. Your expectations can affect what you see. And here we have this famous diagram. Look at this picture. What do you see? You see a duck or a rabbit?
So the
Can you
duck
see the duck?
first, then the rabbit.
Okay, duck
Perhaps
first.
it'll be a rabbit.
Yeah.
The beak of the bird.
Duck first, rabbit second.
Okay.
That's worse.
Can't see it as a rabbit.
What did you see, Jason?
It is, and there's a face and it eyes.
Yeah. So
Nose,
we
little
have
nose.
a duck or rabbit, and then can anybody see both at the same time?
Yes,
I don't know.
yes, I can. Yes,
Oh, really?
I'm a very visual person.
Ah,
I don't know. I switch between them. I think I don't.
I see it both at the same time.
yeah. Yeah. I could probably stand here all day and stare at it and not see both at the same time.
Maybe if you're seeing both at the same time, you're not really seeing either as a whole. At the same
Maybe.
time, exactly the same time. I mean,
If you see them differently over a very short period of time, it's a bit like a cartoon, you know, where you flick the pages.
Mm.
So it could be
Yeah,
a situation where you're vacillating, like the screen on the computer that has a very small time between each image. You're doing the same thing with your eye. You're vacillating very quickly between the sensors. Is that what you talk about, Pauline?
I can't really hear you. What do you say?
Oh, sorry.
Sort of vacillating between the two.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I see a rabbit and then a duck, but they're only a microsecond apart, sort of thing. I don't think I see them together. I think I see them
Separately.
almost simultaneously, but not quite. There's a little bit of a phase shift.
Because you can see the beak and the rabbit at the same time, but it looks like a beak, not ears.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah,
really the whole.
When you concentrate on the what is the rabbit's face side, you see the rabbit. When you concentrate on its ear side, you see the duck. So I think it's a case of slicing between the two. Phase shift or whatever it is. Anyhow, that's my opinion. Over to you, Jason.
yeah, as yeah, thanks for your comment. You're commenting on what you see. And to what extent do your assumptions that this is a rabbit or a duck prevent you from seeing the other figure? As in, does anybody have a strong feeling that they see one or the other? Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, I really can't see the rabbit.
With I can see them both at the same time.
You
And
said
it's
that.
actually making my eyes go backwards and forwards very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a weird experience.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a strong feeling.
I think it depends. Like I've seen this before, so I'm influenced by my knowing what it is. So maybe if it was something I hadn't seen, I'd have a better answer for that. But when it came up, I saw the duck first because I looked at the ears.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Studies of ambiguous figures like the duck rabbit demonstrate an important point. Our perception as a form of nonverbal abstracting does not involve passively reflecting what our senses receive. Rather, our perception consists of our actively attempting to make sense out of cues we receive. These attempts are based on past abstracting, which includes assumptions, inferences, and expectations, both verbal and nonverbal.
Yeah.
So going back to my perception definition, yes, we have sensing, and then in addition to that, we have interpreting and the next thing. In the upcoming video, Lisa Feldman Barrett, she also asked the question of, do we directly experience reality? And here I thought I'd like to play it for you guys.
No, we definitely don't experience reality the way that it actually is. And some people want to say, yes, we do. Philosophers have been arguing about this for like as long as philosophers existed. The question of, does your experience match reality, or are you really experiencing reality in its stark objective truth? And the answer is simply not exactly. Reality for us is what we can sense with our sensory surfaces and what we can make sense of with the signals in our brain. The signals in our brain are as necessary for our experience of reality as the sensory signals that come from the world. So I'm going to use a metaphor to describe how the brain works. It goes something like this. Your brain, my brain, everybody's brain, is trapped in its own dark, silent box called your skull. And the brain has no knowledge of what is going on around it in the world or in the body, right? Because it's in this skull and it's receiving sensory signals from the sensory surfaces of your body. These signals are the outcomes of some changes in the world or in the body. But the brain doesn't know what the changes are. It's receiving the outcomes. And that is what philosophers and scientists call the reverse inference problem. You start with an outcome and you have to guess at the cause. For example, if you hear a loud bang, it could be a car backfiring, a door slamming, it could be a gunshot. Your brain doesn't know what the causes are, it only knows the effect. And so it has to guess. And the guess is important, right? Because you would do different things if it's a gunshot versus if it's a windy day that slammed a door. And luckily, it has one other source of information, and that is your past. The really cool thing about this, if that wasn't cool enough, is that it's actually doing it predictably. Sometimes scientists talk about this as the brain running a model of the world, but the brain is not running a model of the world. The brain is running a model of its body, and it's doing it in this really interesting way. In psychology, a group of instances which are similar is called a category. In essence, what your brain is doing when it's making a prediction, it's creating a category of instances from the past which are similar in some way to the present in order to predict what's going to happen next, what the brain has to do next, and what your experience will be next. And so when a human brain is creating a category, you have to ask, what features of similarity is it using? Is it these sensory and motor features? An apple is round, an apple is hard and crunchy, or is it these abstract features, abstract multimodal summaries of patterns of features? I could take a bunch of apples and I could say, well, these are good for baking and these are not good for baking. And these patterns, this summary, only exist in your brain. Because our brains are structured to construct categories based on the function of things rather than what they look like or taste like or smell like, humans can create something called social reality, which is where we collectively impose a function on objects that the objects don't have by virtue of their physical nature. So a really good example of this is money, little pieces of paper. We all agree that these little pieces of paper have a function of value. And it turns out that many things that we think of as being part of reality are actually like this. We can draw lines in the sand and create the borders of countries, which creates categories of people called immigrants and citizens. We can create governments because we all agree that certain actions, like making little tick marks, has a meaning to elect someone into a position that has certain powers. It's a form of social reality. In our lab, we work on the hypothesis that many psychological categories are forms of social reality. We impose a meaning on a scowling face that it did not evolve to have, but because we all agree that it has that meaning or that function in a particular culture, then it does. To say that your brain resides in a dark, silent box doesn't mean that you are trapped in that box. Your brain has this wonderful capacity to take bits and pieces of past experience and create something completely new that you've never experienced before. We call it imagination. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because our brains are so good at imagining and creating predictions that are not yoked to our immediate surroundings, sometimes we have a lot of trouble staying in the present. You have to practice your ability to control how much you want to be constrained by what's going on outside that box and how much you want to be free of it.
And she too tries to answer the question of do we experience reality directly? And she goes, no. No, we don't. I like how she starts at the end, you know, cat out of the bag. Sorry, people. So I like that. And anybody else have any observations from that video that they want to share?
The big issue is to what's inside and what's outside, isn't it? I sometimes wonder if I'm a human being who dreams of being a cockroach, or whether I'm a cockroach who sometimes dreams of being a human being.
One of the difficulties is that when you're talking about the brain, it's developed in an evolutionary sense for an evolutionary process to keep us going. It's very hard to step outside that cycle and make deductions about it. It's like proving A using A. So when we look at the differences of the levels of abstraction, the differences are quite huge, simply because our brain is functioning on an evolutionary plane. How do you explain that? We are very trapped in that little box. And the video doesn't really highlight too much about that. but it's like a limitation to our thinking. How do you step outside the evolutionary box? It's something worth thinking about.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah, Brett, how to step outside the black box. Yeah, that's how I describe my living in a sensory world inside my head.
Yeah.
I felt that's the only I felt that was it. That was what existed. And that's and yeah. So anybody else?
I think our basic learning experience from our first ability to perceive things with our senses as we're developing as babies is by recognition and rote learning and things like that. And it's overcoming that as you've developed to realizing that you're sorry, Pauline's phone just rang.
Sorry, I'll ring you back later.
So that sort of thing, as you become more aware of the limitations of that process, is when you become aware that you're not living in a world of things. You're living in a world of no things that you've defined. Is when you've actually hit that aha type moment. That's to me anyhow.
Yeah, as far as yeah, I understand you're saying that our experiences and whatnot, as we think stuff, but it doesn't seem to really work. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. And so, okay, maybe it's maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
Can I make a further comment, if I could, thank you? As we grow older, we tend to live more inside our head. When we're younger, we look for distractions outside. We don't think about too much up here. But as we grow older and our physical body starts to deteriorate a little bit, we find ourselves in rooms by ourselves, we suddenly have to resort to this little thing up here. And it's well worth the effort to do the yards, to be able to live inside your own head. So at this stage, for all of us, it's important to do this sort of training so that we become comfortable with living inside that little box. We don't think about it when we're younger, I think. That's where I am.
Brett, you seemed pretty aware of living inside a black box. Is that how you see, or I don't know what you would call it, but is that how you see your see yourself as living inside a box?
I'd answer that by saying, why not visit a nursing home and look at the people in the chairs, and then ask yourself, are they living in black boxes, or are they using all the sensory equipment that they're born with?
Yeah, very much internalizing their life, aren't they? I suppose thinking
Yeah, reflecting.
Or sitting there going la 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 la.
They're happy.
It depends on the stage of dementia, I suppose, as well. Yeah.
But there is a lot of reflecting back, I guess.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's one of the challenges of meditation, I suppose, isn't it? Is that a process of withdrawing into what's inside this black box and saying, well, just for now, I'll cut out a large amount of the sensory inputs that I'm normally subjected to and focused on, and just be happy to experience whatever's happening within.
cut out the noise.
Hmm.
Isn't easy.
John, Mac, Naresh, here I see you guys are currently muted. Is there anything you'd like to share as far as comments on the video or anything else?
Yeah, I do have one. So this video seemed to focus a lot on what you actually see, but it didn't speak about what the brain filters out and what you didn't see. So when you say you're driving in a car, there's 10,000 things happening all at the same time, but your brain is able to filter out the noise from actually what needs to process on. And so I think that's also another important thing when looking at how the map is not the territory, because maps exclude a bunch of details just to get it down to the actual what you need to know when navigating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we only focus on, what is it, 5 plus 2 or 3, something like that, things at a time.
I don't know, 6.
I think it's the 7, you can remember 7 chunks of information. Yeah.
And I think to survive behind the wheel of a car, you've got to do that. So
You focus on the important.
you'll be bumping into all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Well, I'm sitting here just somewhat troubled by the black box and having my mind in the black box vis-a-vis meditation. My experience, I think, is a little bit different to describing that before meditation, I'm in a black box. After meditation, I may be not. My experience has been to, the deeper the meditation gets, the more the mind seems to be able to transcend the bag of skin that I exist in most of the time, that I'm aware I exist in. And it's, if you like, it's another box meditation can take you to, which is, in Jung's terms, collective unconsciousness, or there are other terms for the same thing, nirvana, even if you like. So I watched that lady from Northeastern Uni. I thought it was an incredible sort of explanation, simple, straightforward, good photography and all that. And I just thought at the end of it that, okay, it's like Newtonian physics versus quantum physics. The black box is that kind of Newtonian explanation, but there is an explanation outside of the Newtonian. It's called quantum in that case. And I just thought when you introduce meditation, you personally have access to a wider world than your normal bag of skin black box, or even the world that you constantly inhibit, like the people in an aged care facility. Their room becomes their world in many ways. So I was troubling. I was thinking when you guys were talking about that other explanation that you had.
Just wondering, John, with your explanation, if you could draw a metaphor, if you talk about the nervous system that includes the sensory and the brain, you could talk about that being hardwired, so to speak, like cables going from one destination to the other. I'm just wondering if the brain has a Wi-Fi capacity or a Bluetooth capacity. to be
Yeah.
able to draw information, different types of information from other sources that expand that black box.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, John.
We'll let you sort that one out, Jason.
Well, this is a fundamental problem of being out of touch with reality with mental illness, isn't it? It could be just that you're in a disturbed state and you're having strange and weird and bad dreams. You know, the question of knowing whether you're in a dream or in reality, and being quite disturbed about it, and of course, if that leads to if that continues when you're not in classical terms asleep, so that you're conscious but not particularly aware of your environment, particularly the reality of other people, then that can lead to quite bad behaviour. And people who have had that experience of being psychotic, just hard to distinguish reality from internal internal and external reality.
Yeah, what's projection and what's abstraction?
I don't think he heard you. Gavin was saying what's subjection.
No, of what's projection and what's abstraction. And that's the fundamental ability that I think general semantics is trying to teach us with the abstracting process, find out what we're projecting onto the situation as opposed to what our senses are abstracting from it. But being aware that projection is not a bad thing, it's sometimes very beneficial. Hence the label on some bottles saying poison. You become very wary of. You don't need a sensory impact of the poison to understand it's not good for you.
You'd leave it alone.
So would projection be what Bob Hewlett described as that loop going from level, whatever it is, down to the event level? You know, where you project onto reality, onto the events.
Yeah.
So that would be a natural part of our cycle.
Yeah.
A linguistic loop.
You'd have to think actually that virtually every component of the human condition, whether we nominally label it as good or bad, has some evolutionary type basis for existing, wouldn't you? Like things of expression of anger, for example, or rage and all that sort of thing. We say, oh no, we don't have that in our society. It's not nice, not civilized. Well, there's a basis for it in evolutionary terms. There's a time for fight and flight and all that sort of thing. So in a sense, there's nothing unnatural about human behaviour. I would suggest that everything we do and think and feel has a basis of having a whether we like it or not, having a reality in the terms of the way we've evolved and a reason for being there evolutionary wise.
Having a purpose in our mind.
We know this through anxiety too, that what was mentioned as anger and such had a useful purpose back in the old days where you had to do a bit of sword rattling to kill a beast. But now the context has changed. You still have anxiety because you still have the neurotransmitters there, but now they have to find another thing to apply themselves to, and depression is one of those things.
And anger is a pretty powerful motivator to action.
Yeah. So yeah, unless there's anything else, people might want to add. This concludes this section as far as the process of abstraction goes. As far as time check goes, we have 8:32 here Eastern time. So we've been going on for a little over an hour and a half had I started on time. So does people want to take a break? As far as what I have left, is, I would say, pretty short. And so if you want, we can just finish the rest of the way as far as what I've prepared stuff. If you guys want to take a break, we can do that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a bite of lunch.
Yeah, I suggest that we'd break for a few minutes and have a little walk, whatever, bathroom stop or something. If you can have a bath in that time, that's okay as well. And yeah, resume when you're ready. Jason, perhaps in 10 minutes or so.
On 15. What do you got? 15.
Yeah.
15 minutes? Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, meet back here 15 minutes from now. That sounds
Okay,
great.
go and make yourself a cup of tea, everyone.
Let's say 11:45 our time, which is
Yeah.
all right, guys. All the best. We'll see you shortly.
Thank
I'll
you.
suspend
Thank
the
you,
recording
Jason.
at this point.
And so as far as a few things I thought I'd touch on, thought I'd finish what are some ways general semantics is original, as it goes into the map is not the territory a little bit. And then I found some other map is not the territory definitions that I thought were pretty good. One definition was by Claude, who I understand is an AI agent. So that was interesting. So I'll share that. And then my video that I did, which discusses map is not the territory. In an earlier slide, I read Bob Pula's description of what he considers to be original with Korzybski. As here I shared earlier that Supa considers time binding to be original. He considers that language constitutes the basic tool of time binding, as he considered that a Korzybski original. And then also he considered languages, formulational systems, etc., as maps, and only maps of what they claim to represent. So that leads then into the map discussion that I wanted to share. This awareness led to the three premises popularly expressed of general semantics. The map is not the territory. No map represents all of its presumed territory. And thirdly, maps are self-reflexive. That is, namely, we can map our maps indefinitely. Also, every map is at least whatever else it may claim to map, a map of the map maker. In regards to the map maker's assumptions, skills, worldview, etc. And one thing that, and then Pula emphasized that by maps, we should understand everything and anything that humans formulate. Words, language, words, for example, non-words, consisting of our beliefs and perceptions, sciences, the example given biology, physics, and religions, Catholicism, Protestants. So everything, we should understand everything and anything that humans formulate. That tells a little bit about general semantics definition of map is not territory. Other map is not the territory definitions I found. According to the website Less Wrong, the map is not the territory metaphorically illustrates the difference between between belief and reality. According to the AI assistant Claude, and I was impressed when I read this, map and territory are mental frameworks, for example, beliefs, thoughts, for understanding the world, often differ from reality itself. It's easy to mistake the map that we hold in our minds for the actual territory it's representing. Recognizing the difference between the map and territory is crucial for clear thinking, open-mindedness, and avoiding biases. Other names for this concept include theory versus reality, beliefs versus fact, mental models versus what's really there. For example, we might assume that all neighborhoods are as safe or unsafe as the one we grew up in, or that all jobs involve the same daily task as our current one. But those are just maps in our mind. The territory, or what's really out there, differs. Updating our mental maps to more closely match the territory leads to better choices and less surprising encounters with the unexpected.
That's incredible.
The map is not the territory is a key idea in fields like productivity, rational thinking, and cognitive psychology. Keeping an open and curious mindset focused on what's really there rather than our preconceptions helps us achieve our goals and gain a more accurate understanding of the world. Edited with Claude, now that I see that. So yeah, I learned that that key is the map is not territory is being applied to different fields apparently. That's kind of interesting. And here I wanted to share my video that I did, which sort of serves as a personal example.
Go.
Oh, there we go.
I had reached the pinnacle of my popularity at home and at school.
Is this, can you hear and see that?
I was viewed by my family as the special one, the one who could do no wrong. As the eldest of three, I asserted my dominance with an iron fist over my younger brother and sister. I was the pitcher of the Little League baseball team and the quarterback of the Pee Wee football team. Unfortunately, these early successes got to my head and resulted in a belief which continued well into my adulthood.
They're also exactly the same.
The belief others put me first, treat me special. Now, All of you may find this hard to believe. As it turns out, rather than others put me first, guess what happened? Others put themselves first. People can be funny that way, can't they? And can you guess what my reaction was when others failed to meet my me first expectation? I would get upset. When I got married, my put me first expectation naturally carried over to my wife. So did my wife put me first? No way. About a year into our marriage, I could see her taking control of her life, making her life her own by filling it with things important to her, namely dance, friends, and love. Upon seeing my upset reaction, she explained in her first marriage her husband was first. And there were times she did not get to do things she wanted to do because it was not what her husband wanted. To put it mildly, this putting oneself first instead of me was a new dynamic to our marriage, to which I spent many an anguished night trying to figure out what the problem was, what to do next. I would ask myself, wasn't I enough? Where will this self-empowering on her part lead? Will she move on to someone else? It took me a while to see the problem wasn't my wife putting herself first. Rather, the problem was my thinking she should put me first.
Yeah, okay.
Upon seeing the problem in this new light, I vowed to fix my faulty belief to better reflect the reality. My wife and I are two different persons living two different lives. To fix this, I spoke with my psychologist, and his recommendation to me was to align my beliefs with reality. This sounded like a great idea, but how do I do that? Drum roll, please. General Mechanics, that's how. During this time, I was reading Drive Yourself Sane by Susan and Bruce Kodish, and was introduced to the general semantics premise, the map is not the territory. The website Less Wrong has a good summary of the premise, which I would like to share with you now. According to Less Wrong, Alfred Korzybski coined the term, the map is not the territory, to metaphorically illustrate the difference between belief and reality. Our perception of the world is being generated by our brain and can be considered as a map of reality written in neural patterns. Reality exists outside our mind, but we can construct models of this territory based on what we glimpse through our senses. End quote. After studying the map is not the territory metaphor, I was convinced this was how I was going to better align my beliefs with reality, as I was thinking a big part of my problem was at a young age, I deceived myself into thinking my beliefs were the reality. Armed with this new knowledge, I updated my faulty belief others put me first to the more accurate belief others put themselves first. It took some time for me to adapt to this new belief. Something would pop up, and I would notice I would start to slip back to my old belief. And so I would pause and remind myself, people put themselves first because that is what most people, including myself, naturally do. And after a few moments, I would feel better. Thank you.
That was rather sweet.
That's really good.
Yeah. Well spoken. Well spoken.
It was a good message for Gavin to hear.
Anyway, I have a bit of other GS news. In terms of promoting AGS, I went up to Sydney a few weeks ago and gave a presentation to the Skeptic Society.
Thank you.
No.
25 people turned up and they quite enjoyed it. So first half of the presentation, I just told them about GS. And then the second half of the presentation, I applied it to skeptical ideas. So that they quite enjoyed it.
Well,
So,
25 people.
where was it?
When was it?
Where?
Oh, where? Okay, in a pub in Sydney, not far from Wynyard Station.
Wow, well done.
So actually, they had their. Actually, it was a month ago. Actually, because it was the first Thursday in the month, and they just had another first Thursday in the month 2 days ago. So yeah, it's amazing how time flies. I did follow up with 3 people, but they haven't come back to me, and I don't see any of them online at the moment. So don't get your hopes up.
And do they record that meeting, David?
No, they didn't. But I have all the slides, so if you want, I can at some later time in the year go through and give you this present the slides of the AGS part of it.
Well, we could make that a GS meeting on skepticism.
Yeah.
Skepticism versus faith.
Oh, that'd be a bit of a hot topic.
Yeah, well, we need some courage also to handle dissension and hot topics sometimes.
Oh, yes.
I would love to be a part of that topic.
Yes, Jason, we should respectfully come back to following on with what you were doing from that AKML presentation.
I think as I thankfully I can just go ahead and not have to really say much because the video pretty much said it. So I like that part where I don't really have to say anything about it. And how much time do we have left?
Oh, max 40 minutes, but we don't have to use all that time.
Well, we normally go till 1 o'clock. Have you guys had your 10-minute break?
Yes. I'm impressed, Jason, at how much growth you've done and reflection and how effective your reflection's been. And I bet your wife's impressed too. Has she fed back what changes or how it's impacted your relationship or anything like that?
I guess as far as my personal development goes, this is sort of my thing. and she has her stuff, and so I get to talk here about it, about general semantics and development, stuff like that, and she has her development areas, you could say, that she's interested in.
So what are those?
Like photography, for instance, and so.
Oh, just like Pauline.
Yeah. So
I should friend her. Gavin was saying I should friend her on Facebook today. He was saying that yeah, she has great stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. What was pretty cool was over the Easter weekend. My wife had a photo shoot, and her photo shoot was I think 13 or 15 clowns in clown costumes. Yeah. And so she got to do that. And so that's her thing. And I get to hear, there you go.
And that was a good example of the map is not the territory, wasn't it? Clouds wearing clowns costumes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So in response to your, in summary, Pauline, she has her thing, I have my thing.
Yeah, and that's very good. I think that's a healthy relationship when you can do that. And
Yeah, I've failed in my conversion attempt to pull her over to general semantics. I'm still trying though.
But you know, influence, little influences, you know.
Yeah.
Pauline, if I'm not right, I remember a reflection of this very thought in your wedding vows. If we can think back to that 10th of the 10th of 2010, yep,
Mhm.
where there was some mention of diverse interests, for example, in the workshop and behind the camera.
Yes. Well, I've continued to enthusiastically be behind the camera, but I don't see much happening in the workshop.
I've got a project or two for Gavin.
Oh, what's that?
I have a few ideas for Gavin. Keep him busy.
So do I, like that fence down at Chirochi.
Isn't this very reminiscent of Jahari's windows?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Ah, yes.
You can never know how somebody else views you. If you ask somebody for their honest opinion, what am I like? What sort of human being am I? If they're a friend, they're never going to tell you the truth, are they? So how
Or
do
maybe
you
they might just
truth?
distort the truth a bit, you know, little bending here and there.
Polishing.
And it depends kind of what sort of friend too, because some people see you through rose-coloured glasses somewhat, and others are harsher in
I
their
know,
general,
like
like
at Pauline
people's
and
general
Gavin's
outlook.
wedding. Theo
Sorry?
invited them 10, 10, 10. Can't do any better than that.
Actually, could I just say something to Milton? Milton, you are muted because we had noise before there. If you'd like to say something, by all means, unmute yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, the idea of a friend being honest with you, the true friend, of course, will be honest in a respectful and positive fashion. So if they say, oh, your fly's undone or something, you know, most people out of politeness might not mention it.
Or say it very discreetly, not yell at
a good friend will be constructive and helpful.
And also try and avoid projecting and either or distortion.
Yeah, Milton's pressed the wrong button, I think.
Yes, he disappeared instead.
Yes, so yeah, either or distortion and so forth. That's right. So a true friend, of course, will be honest, but with but with care and respect in the way they do that. And just they won't say, how come you never bother looking after your clothes? You know, they'll discreetly tell you what the problem might be at the moment in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary embarrassment.
Yeah, so yeah, our friends, of course, will try to tell us the truth and whatnot. Which sort of leads into the last section that I wanted to discuss, fact inference, which I think would be fun to finish with. As here I found a little section on fact inference continuum in Drive Yourself Sane. When we're distinguishing facts from other inferences, we're involved with degrees of probability. How do we differentiate a factual statement's closest to certainty from an inferential statement's degree of probability? We don't in any absolute sense. Therefore, as Kenneth Johnson suggested, we prefer to view these processes on a continuum, not as sharp categories. And then the continuum, they have a diagram of it, which I don't have, but we have a straight line and we have certainty on the leftmost side with wild guess on the rightmost side.
What are you looking at?
The degree and kind of information we need to determine something as a fact varies. at a minimum, we do best to stay with publicly observable occurrences in the past or present when we consider something as close to certain as representing a fact. And then as far as truth sayers go and being able to distinguish fact from inference, I wanted to finish with a video from our future president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Hey!
I'm going to try to
Hey, don't say that, Jason. Like, are you?
I don't.
You have already decided, like, he's
He's
going to be
joking.
second
Well,
president.
he's ahead of the polls.
In his mind, he's winning, right?
Oh, in his mind, he's going to be like the Russian guy. He's going to be there for life.
It excites me.
Let's hope his McDonald's diet catches up with him before the voting does.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So as far as fact inference goes, as far as the book goes, saying, you know, we want to be, in order for distinguish a fact, we want to be as close to the observable the act or the fact that we can be, to be absolutely certain. Now, here as far as Trump goes, him being a fact sayer, truth sayer, he wouldn't lie to us.
No.
No.
I hope your tongue's not going through your cheek there, Jason.
What?
I'm just saying, it sounds like your tongue's about to go through your cheek.
Yes.
Expression Aussies have.
Yeah. So a little bit of context. As some of you may know, Trump, he's stopped in Ohio. I think it was about a month ago as part of his presidential campaign that he's doing. And of course, he stopped in Ohio, which is where I'm at. And Ohio was a red state this past presidential election. So Trump has a large contingency here. And Trump, he decided that he would go ahead and retell the story of the January 6th insurrection, or not insurrection. Well, I don't know what Trump calls it, but
something other than an insurrection.
Something other than an insurrection. It's not an insurrection. You know, that's fake news, right? That's fake news.
Yeah.
So here what I'm going to share is Trump's perspective of what happened. So here, hopefully it plays for us. So,
well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to.
And he's referring, when he says hostages, he's referring to the January 6th rioters who've been sentenced to prison. And so I was hoping to get I was going to get a bigger section of the speech, but yeah, he uses the term hostages.
What, kidnapped by Biden, I suppose.
I'm sorry?
Does he claim that they were kidnapped by Biden?
Well, I don't know if he does or not. He may, but yeah, I just wanted to fill that in.
Yeah, to be unkind to call them
The
criminals.
first
wouldn't
day
it?
we get into office, we're going to save our country. We're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace, in my opinion.
What amazes me is I've seen a poll that says 70% of American voters don't want another Trump-Biden election, and yet the Democrats have picked Biden and the Republicans have picked Trump. Let's hope a third-party person gets in as president.
Yeah, there is a third party. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
This one.
Yeah. So, so as far as the meaning that Trump gives to the people in prison is they're not prisoners. They're for
Political hostages.
for because they done something wrong. It's because political hostages. Yeah. So
I suppose as soon as Trump gets in as president, he'll pardon them all, including himself.
right.
That's why he wants to get in as president, so he can pardon himself for all the
That's
wrongdoing.
right, from all the things he'll be committed for. Yeah.
But as I understand it, he would not be able to pardon anyone convicted on state crimes, only on federal, through a federal court.
What's the story there, Jason?
I don't know.
So I don't know what the limitations of the pardon are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has, yeah, the trouble is, as in this country, the states are, the United States of America is a collection of entities who are joined together by a federal framework, but the states still, some of them in fact call themselves commonwealths, don't they? And so the states have powers that the feds in some cases cannot overcome. Anyway, we won't solve that one today. Yeah.
So does that mean if Georgia convicts Trump of nefarious activities regarding the polling, he won't be able to pardon himself for that one then?
That's my belief, yes.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with the abortion laws over there, isn't it?
Well, it's different from state to state.
Yeah. But the feds can't come and do an overarching principle that they all have to adhere to. So if you want an abortion, you have to shop around. I think.
Yeah. So the question of accurate mapping is just so huge, isn't it, in the current social and political context? And labelling, of course, is a form of mapping. So whether you call someone a criminal prisoner, a political prisoner, or a hostage, it's a big deal.
Yes, whether you call them a terrorist or a freedom fighter.
And thank you, Jason. It's been quite a